Good morning, everyone. So we're going to begin. Welcome to this webinar offered by Centris on Instanet and DocBox. My name is Karina McNish, and I'll be showing you how to use the tools. And we'll go mainly over Instanet and then introduce a little bit DocBox. So at this moment, everyone should be able to hear my voice and see my screen. If you have any issues with the webinar, the best way to resolve the issue is to exit the webinar and enter again. If you still have issues beyond that, I'll have to ask you to call Centris. And in your Centris zone at the top right corner, you have the icon here, the question mark with all the ways you can contact Centris. So for a technical issue, you would give them a call here at this phone number, okay? So just before we access the tool, I'd like to show you on the left here in the Centris zone, there's the training section. So possibly some of you have registered to the webinar today through here, but for those who don't know, this is where you can have a look at webinars and tutorials on all the different tools that Centris offers. So for today, we would be looking at InstanetForms. You can choose a language if you like, and search and see which webinars are coming up. Okay. And same thing for tutorials. So this webinar today might be recorded and replacing some of the webinars here later on, the full length ones. And in addition to that, there's also small tutorials that are available, smaller tutorials, so a few minutes that you can watch. So basically a YouTube video that you can watch on your own time and at your own pace, okay? And that's for all the tools here. You can go and have a look at the tutorials or register for the webinars. So I'll access here the InstanetForms tool. So I have it in my favorites here on the left. If you don't, you can always edit and add InstanetForms, or if you're going through tools, you could scroll down to InstanetForms and access the tool. Okay. So you'll be arriving on the dashboard here, and there are two things that you can use to help you navigate through the tool. So on the left, you have a main menu. So if you open it up here, you see all the different modules within TransactionDesk, okay? So we're gonna look at InstanetForms today, but all the modules are linked together and they're meant to work together, okay? So we'll have a look at DocBox a little bit and you'll see how everything works together. The idea, the best way to use TransactionDesk and InstanetForms or all the tools is to use them through a transaction. So you always want to create a transaction, okay? Now your dashboard may not look like this, and that's completely normal. It's possible for you to personalize the look and the layout of your dashboard, and to do that is by clicking on the top right corner on the lock here. So when you click on the lock, it's possible for you to remove widgets or add them, and you can also change the sizes, okay? So I strongly recommend that you have the transaction shortcut here, and when you open up TransactionDesk, you would always start with create a transaction. Then having a list of your transactions here is also quite useful. You can just jump into the transactions that you are already working in. And then up to you if you want to add these other widgets when you get to find out how they function, okay? So then when you're done customizing your dashboard, you can close the lock and start using the tool, okay? Now, in InstanetForms, so what I'm going to do is before starting a transaction and going through, I'll go through all the steps with the wizard that we call, I'll just jump into InstanetForms on the left here to show you individually what is available how to access the forms outside of a transaction. So you have individual forms, and you can always here at the top right, search. Okay, if you don't know if it's a mandatory or recommended form, you can search for the form and have it come up this way. Okay, so I searched it up here. I can click on PPD, and then you'll be prompted to create a new form, to start a new transaction or add to an existing transaction. So it sort of always circles back to creating a transaction. That's why it's best to, from the beginning, start a transaction. Okay, so you would create a transaction this way, and so you can leave this title and select if you're the listing or the selling broker or both, and use the wizard. You could import the Centris number if you have it, and or you could search it here this way. I'll go without a Centris number for now. Okay, and then I'll create. Okay, so you see now I'm in a transaction, and the transaction now I selected use the wizard, which means this column on the right here appeared, and I'm going through all the different steps of the transaction. And here I'm on page step 1 of 5, which is details, and then I can go and fill those out. Okay, before we do that, I'll just go through the different, go back to InstanetForms here on the left, and go through the different forms individually that are available to you. Okay, so I search for PPD, but when you open the mandatory forms, you can see all the different forms that are available, and you always have the explanatory leaflets if you're unsure if it's the right form for you. And you also have so that's all the individual forms, and you also have the transaction forms. So you may go into an existing transaction that you started and access only the forms in the transaction without going through the whole transaction and all the different steps with the wizard. Okay, then you could select the forms, you're putting them in the basket, and you could do different things with them. And this is available pretty much anywhere you are in TransactionDesk. So you can select the forms and download, print, save as PDF, you can fax them, you can send them to Authentisign if you're using Authentisign, you can send them through email or trash them. Okay, and when I say fax, it's because there is a fax option with Instanet that is there if ever you do need to fax. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back to my dashboard, and the way you would normally want to function is this way. So you would create a transaction, and you would give it a title. You could use a template. So if you've created a template in your settings, you can apply a template, and what it'll do is your template usually will contain the forms that you need for that type of transaction. So if it's a multiplex and income property, you'll have all the forms that you need for income properties, okay? And blank forms that you can fill out. So for now, I won't go there. Just want to let you know what that is. And then you can select here what type of transaction you're doing. So are you doing commercial, residential? So we'll do a residential sale, okay? Since I'm listing a property, it's not on Centris. It's not on Centris for now. It will be, and I will be the listing broker, and I will use the wizard. So I'll go ahead and click create. So now I'm in my transaction. The wizard is there on the right, and I'm going through the different steps, and you can enter here the information about the property, so lot size, the address, and the asking price, all the other information here. You could save and exit, or you click next. Okay. Now on the this page here, the transaction dates, it's really important to enter the dates to be able to use the different modules in the wizard here, which is tasks and checklists. So we'll have a bit of a look at that later on, introducing some of the features which are linked with DocBox. But every step that you do going through here is important for what you're doing later on. So let's say our listing date is today, the expiration date end of January, and let's say our promise to purchase will be on Monday after my first open house on Sunday, for example, and my promise to purchase runs for 2 weeks, and supposing I accepted it on Monday, and the deed of sale can be end of November, and the mortgage, I don't know yet at this point. Okay, so I've filled out the dates here, and I can continue. Now here I'm on the contacts page. So I'm the listing broker. My name is Centris number 6, my agency, and here I could add for sure at this point my vendor. So I might maybe have my vendor here. So Mr. Vendor, I've already worked with them. If I don't, then I can create a new contact. Okay, so in this situation, Mr. Vendor is the seller. In the form, his also Mr. Great Vendor in French and English. This is his address. Okay, so this is what will appear in the forms, and this is their actual address, which is the same as property address. Okay, so you can save it that way. Either way works. Okay, so this is what I'm starting with because I'm listing the property. So it's me and my vendor, right, and my agency. Later on, when I get a promise to purchase and a buyer, then I can come back here and add the maybe not the buyer's email, but the other brokers, the selling broker's contact information, and any other people that are acting in the transaction. So you could put the building inspector. If you put the building inspector here, the mortgage specialist, the notary, anyone that can be in the transaction, you will then be able to send them reminders, notifications, send some documents automatically. So documents, so forms that we'll be doing in a few minutes, but also documents when we talk about DocBox. What DocBox is it's meant to store all the other documents in your transaction that are apart from OICQ forms, so InstanetForms. So everything else you have to keep in your files that isn't an OICQ form. But all of that, you do need to transfer it to the notary, to the bank, to to the potential buyer who wants to see all the receipts for the renovations, the certificate of location, all of that. They aren't OICQ forms, so they go in DocBox. So DocBox, what it is a storage, okay, like exactly like Dropbox, but it's called DocBox here. And in your wizard, it's the document section, and it's meant to store your documents so securely, and it is part of your of the tools that are offered to you when you're using the Centris tools. Okay, so I'll get back to that. I'll just continue here now that I've added my vendor, and now I'm on forms. So when you're using forms for brokers that are already been working for a while, you probably know how to use this. For the new brokers, I'll go through some basic information here. So what I'll do here, so exclusive brokerage contract to sale, I'll select that, and then what I'll do is search for my declaration. So as you see, my first one was in the basket, and now I'll put in the seller's declaration in my basket as well, and I'll click add. So now I have the two first contracts that or documents, forms I should say, that I need to start my transaction here with my client, okay? So I'll open up the seller's declaration. So typically you would want to fill in the seller's declaration before the contract. And so you can go through that and fill it out with your client. Okay, just so you know, at the top here, there are several options that are available to you. So you could, from here, add a new document. So if you need, you're at the end of your seller's declaration here, you've filled out, you've taken up all the space, then you could add here an annex, a general annex to fill in more information. So you could do it this way, and you could do annex. This one here, and you could add that, and then access it and fill out whatever you need to add and to complement your seller's declaration. Okay, so this is adding a new form. Then you can open forms, so you can open the forms that you've added in this transaction. So for now I have 3. You can save, so anything that you do in InstanetForms, you need to save. So you save, doing this is saving it in the platform. So as you see, it said here, you have the green notification that it's saved. And that also applies when you're sending forms to your client for them to revise and approve. If they do change something in the forms, they need to save this way on the platform. If they save as a PDF on their desktop, they're only saving the changes they're doing on their desktop. Okay, so be sure to be very clear with your clients that when they access, when you send them something, and I'll show you here, so you can send by email, which is most probably what you'll be doing, or fax or DocBox, or if you want to go to markup. So markup is an editing tool. Okay, so we'll get back to that. But if you're sending by email to your clients and you're saying, okay, review the seller's declaration, let me know if it's okay, if you want to modify some dates or add anything, that's when you want them to, you want to notify them to save here. So they have something very similar to this platform, but on the client side, so it's not complete access like ours, but they have the same thing. So save this way. And they can also save on their desktop for sure, but for it to be so that you can view their changes, it's this way. Now, one thing that's very useful is, so what I'll do is I'll go into the contract, and let's say I'm filling out the contract and I'm going a bit too fast, and you know, I put in the information, and for some reason, you know, I'm filling this out and going a bit too fast here, and I finalize by mistake. Now I can't change the contract. I can't continue to fill it out or modify anything, okay? So instead of starting a new contract, what you can do is you can copy. So if you copy, what will happen is a new form will be generated that is a draft. So you can edit it, and what happens is it carries over the form number from the previous form that you copied. So it's a good way for you to follow and figure out which form carried over which one and which one is the old one. So this one I finalized too fast. This isn't good anymore, but this is the one I'm going to continue working on. Okay. Now the other options that you have here, so you can erase. If you're adding dashes everywhere, you've filled your offer, it's final, and you don't want any empty spaces, you can add dashes, and then this is where you could clear dashes this way. You can also so erase everything. You can remove the form. You can print it. And so send it, what I did is send by email. I was telling you earlier. So you select which form you're sending. So let's say the seller's declaration and the brokerage contract. You would send it to your client and say, please review and save any changes you may need to make. Okay. And so you can send it as a link, so they receive an email and a link, or you can send it as an attachment. And here you're allowing editing of forms, okay? And you always need to put an expiry date, so you could do it that way. You can reconfirm here on the second tab. So items, which ones are you sending? And if the person is faxing, you can send a fax back cover sheet, which is isn't very frequent, okay? And then go ahead and click send. So I'm gonna have a look. I have a question here. So somebody's asking me, it would follow the same seller's declaration? Yeah, no worries. So you want me to repeat the duplicate the form? So what happens is if you make a mistake and you finalize the form and you want to keep editing it, but you finalize it. So when you finalize a form, it's not possible to continue editing. That means it's final and you're going to send it off for signature, okay? Let's say you've made that mistake. And then what you can do is, instead of starting a new contract and filling it out completely all over again, you can just copy. And when you copy, it carries over so it copies the form, carries over the information, but it puts it on a new form with a new number, okay? So this is my new form and I can continue editing. And when you want to look at the forms that you have, see this one has 3 numbers in front of it. So this was the first one, I finalized it, then I copied it because I needed to continue, and then this one I just did with you when the person asked, and I copied it again. Okay, so they're all there. So technically, the third one here should be the good one. These ones here, I could trash them. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Don't hesitate if you have any questions or things you want me to repeat. If some parts are too fast, it'll be my pleasure to repeat. Okay? So I can close here. So you can fill out the form, and when you arrive to inclusions, exclusions, or other declarations here or conditions in your form, when you click, you do have the little option here to add a clause. So you can do it that way, or you go through, if you click on the field, you can click on clause, and you can have so you can have personal clauses that you've created. If you create clauses, let's say you're giving a discount in exchange for something, do make sure that your clause is legally valid. Have it verified with your agency director and with your or a notary, and then you'll be able to add it in all of your contracts. Otherwise, there's office clauses, so it's possible that your office has clauses that are available to you, but most probably you'll be using the system clauses. So they're all the OICQ clauses. They're right here. Again, you can search through them, or you can go in the different subsections. So here we have broker contract. So here, agreement for offering the movable for sale by the client. So there's a bunch here. So I'll select this one. Well, if I click on it, I can preview it, see if it's the right one. So I'll go ahead and put it in my little basket, and I could put more than one, right? So I could do this. And now my clause is there, and I can fill out the blanks with the numbers that are necessary here, okay? Same thing if you click on add clause, the same thing pops up, okay? Now, you do have options here for, so we went through everything here except finalize. I did it quickly, but you want to finalize typically to send to signature. So you might be using AuthentiSign, which is the pen you see here. If not, you'll download this form onto your desktop and upload it in whatever signing tool you're using. If not, you can just send to AuthentiSign. And that's one of the advantages of using all the tools that you have in TransactionDesk. Pretty much everything is there. Also, it's quite inexpensive to use the AuthentiSign tool, but that's up to you, okay? Now, if you're on a box here where you're adding some content, some text, you can change everything to uppercase, lowercase, title. So you have a few options here that are available, okay? You also have here the possibility to jump to the different pages. So if you don't want to scroll, that's one thing. So you can go smaller, full length, full height, and go through your form that way, okay? Just close this here. You also have always the option to view the transaction forms. So as you've noticed, there's several ways you can end up at the same place. So when I was looking at file and open forms, I arrive here, but you also have transaction forms, which is there. So there's a few ways, to find your way around. And okay, I see I have a question here. So someone's asking me, Daphne, I'll have to ask you to contact Centris for that question. That's something specific to you. So just give them a call and they'll be able to assist you with that. Okay, so now I'm on the forms page, which is step 4 of 5. So you can continue adding forms. So these were my mistakes. You can always click on the 3 dots and you have some options there. So I'll delete this one. That was a mistake. This one was a mistake as well. And I strongly suggest that you do that so you aren't confused with all of the forms when you're duplicating and replacing form. So these are the ones I'm working with. I can quickly, here I'll just finalize a form. And so here I have it finalized, and I'll now be able to send it to signings. Once it's signed, it'll appear here with the certificate. And then when I'm going into the next one, so all my forms, once they're signed through AuthentiSign, obviously, they'll be there. And then afterwards, for those of you who aren't using AuthentiSign, and there is a full webinar on AuthentiSign that you can follow. Then you can access the documents section. So the documents section, as I introduced it a little bit earlier, is the same thing as Dropbox for the people who know what that is, or Google Drive or iCloud. So it's a storage space in a cloud if you want. And the difference with this one here is that it's, first of all, approved by OICQ for, and it meets all the standards, the security standards that the OICQ wants. It's part of your membership with your Centris yearly fees, and it's unlimited. And also you can access it from anywhere, any computer. So if you're keeping all of the documents on your desktop and you're going on vacation or away for the weekend and you need to access your documents for a transaction, you have a small emergency, then you wouldn't be able to access your documents. With DocBox, all the documents will be here. So as I mentioned, DocBox is meant to store all the documents other than forms. So what you would be doing here is you would add a new document or a new folder. So I could add a new document here, and the different ways to add a document is either to drag and drop, upload from device, the same thing. You can copy from somewhere else in DocBox, because in DocBox here there's a few, there's a main inbox, so I'll access it now. So there's a main inbox, which is just like your like an email address. Okay, so this is all the stuff that I've received from all sorts of people. They aren't sorted; they're there. Okay, it's just a bit of everything. Then I have folders, so I have maybe documents. So I'm keeping my refused promise to purchase or templates to use for tenants. So all sorts of documents that I may want to use and sorted in different folders. Then I have shared documents here. So these are documents that another broker would have shared with me through TransactionDesk. So if I'm working with a team, I have a teammate and he's sending me documents, they would appear here. And then transaction folder is all of the documents within the specific transaction. So now I'm on the left, I'm in TransactionDesk, and where we were a few seconds ago was in my transaction September 21st. So here, my webinar September 21st, which is a transaction. So I'll go back to my transaction here, and I was here on documents. Well, so let's say I want to add documents, and I'm adding documents. I can go in my, so I'm saying, where am I retrieving this new document? So I'll go and say, well, it's from my my inbox here. I have a receipt here for a balcony, electricity warranty for the rooftop, school taxes that I would have uploaded there. So all sorts of things like that you need to have for your transaction, they're all there. Okay, so this is the document here. So this is a warranty. You can, so there are a lot of things, a lot of options that you have at the top. So you can either submit it for review. That's one option. If you have someone that you've designated as a reviewer of your documents, that we'll see in the settings, they could receive the notification that this needs to be reviewed. You can copy it to a cloud. So what we're trying to do here is the opposite. We're trying to bring all the documents here in DocBox and TransactionDesk, but you can, if you want to send it to Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, or something else. You can print, download, send it to AuthentiSign if you want it to be signed. This is a markup tool, so I've mentioned it quickly before, and you can do all sorts of things if you need to. If you need to undo, you can do that. If you need to hash out some text, you can do that. If you need here to rotate the page because it's sideways like this one, you can go on the, so it's called the document slicer, and you can save. And then you can go back to markup. Oh, because it's in review. Okay, I painted myself into a corner here. Because it's in review here, I can't modify the document. So that's why I wasn't able to to change it. So I'll do it again. So for those of you who want to see it again, so I can do all of those things here, and I was at document markup. Now let's say I want to highlight something and for my client to read, but this document is sideways. You can go here on document slicer, and that's where you can change the direction of the document. And then you could go on document markup and highlight something that you would want to highlight. So I can't see much on this document, but let's say this is what I want to highlight, or if I want to add a text box and say, you know, if you're going through a co-ownership declaration and you want to highlight the bylaws, no barbecues, no cats, no smoking, you could comment the form like that. Make sure your client reads it. Okay, so this you can use for any type of form. Okay, if you want to hash out some stuff, the client's information, you can do this here. Okay, and you can replace the document, so you can replace the warranty I had before, or save as a new document with a new name. Okay. Okay, so I'm having a look at the question box. I have several comments. It's a bit difficult for me to follow you. If you can write one full question so that I know exactly what you're talking about, I'll be happy to answer and repeat if needed. So within DocBox here, we just want to introduce it. There is a full webinar on DocBox that is available. But this is mainly what you want to do. So you want to add all of the documents, so the deeds, the you know, everything else, you can add them here. And on the three dots, you have the same options are there as I was showing you on the full open document page. So you can preview, and then you can print, download, delete, rename, send it to someone, copy, move it somewhere else, slice markup, which we just did. So just editing the form, and send to Authentisign. You can upload a revision. So that's if you're the person that was designated to review the document and you have a revision and you're saying, okay, well, this is, it might be, you know, a service offer, a contract, and you and your colleague are editing it and saying, okay, this is what the proposal we're going to send to the client. Your colleague can upload a revision and then ask you to verify it. Okay. Okay, no problem. I'm having a look at the questions here. Now the document section here, we clicked on add. So if you click add a new document, so you can drag and drop. So I took something from my DocBox before here, but it's also possible to drag and drop a file from your computer. So click on drag and drop, or if you click on this here, it's the same thing. It'll bring you to it'll open up your desktop folder and you can add a document here. Okay, so that's one of the ways. Clicking on add a document. So import from a third party. As we saw, you can, if you're using one of those, you might want to migrate everything here because these tools aren't necessarily approved by OICQ. They cost money. You have to pay a yearly fee, and they aren't, probably don't meet the security standards that are requested. Now you also have an email upload. So this location, the documents section in your transaction, webinar 21st of September, has an address. And this is the address. So what you can do is ask for your client to email all of the documents, all of the renovation receipts or co-ownership minutes and financial statements to this address. So from there, Hotmail, Outlook, they'll forward all of the documents to this address, and the documents will arrive here. Okay, so this is a pretty neat function, and there's also this little contact card right here I just clicked on, which is the information here for the contact. So you have Centris here, that's the address for this DocBox. So you can send this address to everyone involved in the transaction and say any documents you need to forward them, you need to forward to me as a broker, forward them to this address, and they will appear in your transaction 21st of September in the documents section. Okay. Now, if I go back on the dashboard of my transaction, notice there's also the little icon here for email upload, and the address is there as well. Okay, so that's the address for this transaction. Now, if I'm going in another transaction, so webinar June 8th, this transaction has a different email address. Okay, it's not the same as the one we were just looking at. Okay, so I have here, if I go in the documents section of that transaction here, see, I have a deed of sale. I can forward an email. I have taxes, co-ownership declaration, have all sorts of documents that I need to keep for my transaction, but that aren't forms, okay, OICQ forms. So I'll go back to my 21st of September, my signings, so I haven't signed anything yet. My forms are here, my signings would be there, and everything else, my documents are here, okay? Now, a bit more about DocBox would be checklists and tasks. So in my checklist, you can see here that I have the roof warranty because I had submitted it for review. So I can send, so I can upload another document here, a reviewed version of the document, and then that would complete, well, it's submitted and then it would be completed. And you can remove from queue. But all of these tasks here, or checklists that you would want to apply, are only possible if you've filled out the first pages of the details and the contacts with the dates of the promise to purchase. So I'll show you very quickly, but we just want to introduce the DocBox features in this webinar. You can attend the full DocBox webinar for these extra features here, okay? But if I wanted to add a checklist item, I could say I have a document and a task, and it is mandatory, and I need a phase 1 environmental report, right? And then I can say who has access. I can limit the access, and it can only be the seller who has to provide this. The review, I can have the document reviewed by the agency if I want to, or staff review, collaborating review. And now I can describe what the task is here, And this here, the date, time, the due date is what refers to the dates that you've added in the first pages here. Okay, so I just want to let you know the reason why it's important to enter the dates when you're starting your transaction. Well, it's important if you want to use the full tools and if you want to automate your work. Really, this is all just to make your work easier and faster. Okay, so what you're doing is you're automating and you're saying, okay, I need the environmental phase 1 for the sale of this property. It's a let's say it's a commercial property. We did residential in the example, but let's say for here, for this document, that it's commercial. So you want to say according to the listing date, before the listing date, let's say 1 day before the listing date, I need this document here, excuse me. Okay, and I can send a reminder 1 week before, 1 day before, and then I can assign it to, so I said I would restricting the access to my vendor, so I can do that, but I can also more precisely assign it to the seller and notify them by email, and then notify the owner of this task, which would be you or me right now, and notify everyone that this task is due. So I can click save here. Okay, so this is what happens here. Okay, I have a task which is part of a checklist. So you can add a checklist that has a series of tasks that's all predetermined for each type of transaction. So let's say you create a checklist and you're saying, I need the deed of sale, the deed of loan, I need the renovation receipts, the hydro bills, the certificate of location. You list all of that in one checklist. In that checklist, you apply it to each transaction. And all you need to do when you're doing your going through your transaction and you're using the wizard is you're going to add an entire checklist. So you can have one of those checklists here for so a new condo purchase, for income property checklist, new residential home sale. So all of those documents you need for every transaction, it's always the same ones. You can apply this, and when you put it in the contact at first, in the contact tab, the name of the vendor or whoever you need the information from, you can send those tasks to the vendor and say, well, Mr. Vendor, I need all of those documents, send it to this address here, and just apply the checklist. So what you're doing is you're automating your work, and that's the point of using DocBox and checklists and task managers, okay? So if you're going into tasks, you can have a look at your calendar and you'll see the tasks that are upcoming. So when you have a promise of purchase, for example, you can put in all of your delays. So you can see the tasks for, financing is due that date, inspection this date, review of documents that date, and then you can have a pretty good view of what's going on in your transaction. And this is within the webinar 21st of September, you can see what happens. But then if you go on your general, you go outside of this transaction and you go in Task Manager, then you have all of the tasks for all of your transactions. So I might have to go back here. And you can see here, these are different transactions. So I have, okay, so for the one in blue, I have this transaction, the one in green, this task, and this one, I have this task. And so you can see everything that's coming up, okay? So you can review it as a list. And when you're done with a task, you can just strike it out here. So this one is pending. You can say, okay, this one, I've done it. It's completed. So it also works well if you're working with with someone else, you're working as a team, or if you have someone working with you, because you can assign those tasks to your secretary, if you have one, and say, okay, you're doing all the social media stuff. And once the person has done it, they can say they've completed it. And if I'm going back on my in my transaction here, so checklist and tasks are some of the last two options here, and then you do have history. So when you look at a history, you can see everything that every user has done in the transaction. So if you have someone working for you and doing your social media, you'll see that they were the ones at this time of the day that added a document that said they completed the social media task. So you can keep tabs. Okay, so that gives you a little summary of what of in general all the tools here in the wizard, what they are for and how you can use them. So we are focusing on the forms today in InstanetForms, but know that you can go into Documents, DocBox with the checklist and the task, and go even further in automating your work. So the idea is you want to streamline every step and make it a lot faster for you, because a lot of the things we do are repetitive. Every transaction is different, but there's a number of things that are the same in each transaction, so you can automate that. Okay, now I'll finish here by going back to my dashboard and going to the settings. So if you go on the top right, click on your icon for your account here, you can click on setup, and in setup you can go through all of the settings of the account. So you only need to do it once, but after that it'll be customized to your preference, the way you want to work. So first of all, you can select language, time zone, your email signature, so you can change it, your branding. And so ideally, if you work for an agency and you have a logo and you have colors, you can add all of these here, because when your client, you're sending them documents to review, they will access kind of like Matrix, where the client has their portal. They have a client version, so a portal for the client, which is part of TransactionDesk, but it will have your header, your logo. So you want to have the same branding on all your websites, all the platforms you're using. So you should go ahead and upload any logos or branding that you can use. Okay. Now, program settings. You can go through all of these, and you don't have to do it, all at first. You can learn to use the tool or come back after you've done the DocBox webinar as well. It might be easier for you to know what these are referring to, but you can customize everything. So your transaction settings, you want to view, by default, all of yours shared, and how do you want to sort them, display. Do you always want to create a cover sheet for faxes? Do you always, by default, want to use the wizard? So I strongly recommend that you tick this box. And then if you want to upload PDF, so you can do that for every category here, and select how you want to mostly view by default all of the features. How do you want them to appear? Okay. So faxes here, task settings, and when we're talking about mine or all is when you're working with a team. Do you always want to be sending your emails as a link or as an attachment? AuthentiSign if you're using AuthentiSign. So here, agency file review. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to send a document for review, you can come here and determine who is the person reviewing. So are you the staff reviewer, listing reviewer, collaborating reviewer, agency reviewer? Who are you, right? And here see the default status, okay? And the markup settings, so there's a few options here you can customize, all right? Now for notification, so this can be quite useful if you want to be notified when a client opens the documents you're sending. So if you're sending a promise to purchase and you want your client to, and you know it's time sensitive, a lot of our work is time sensitive, right? So you want the buyer to review the promise to purchase and then say they're okay with it, and then you can send it for signature. But they're a bit hard to reach. You can know when they open the document to be reviewed, okay? So, or any of, that's an example, but any of the other options here. So you can be notified for all of these actions here. The tasks, so notify, and then for the teams, so I'll show you in a second how to create a team as well, but you can be notified for everything underneath teams. And I'll just go here. Okay, I'll continue and I'll get back to teams. I'll go through them in order. The type management. So type management is within the tool, the tasks and the checklist. We're assigning tasks to people, right? So you can assign the task to all sorts of people, and a lot of them are already listed in TransactionDesk, but some may not, and you can add them if you can add some if you need to. So here, all of these are added by the system, so by the program, the software by default. But here, if you wanted to create another type, you could add somebody else. So if you're doing a lot of, I don't know, if you want a general contractor, you could add a general contractor here. Okay, so I think I've done it in other. So see, this is the one that these are ones that I've added here. Those are for different types of documents that may be needed. So I've added, customized and added other types. Now for properties, they're pretty much all there. If you're selling spaceships, you could add spaceships here, and it would figure in the list. In the service order, so when I'm saying you can assign a task to different people, these are the people you could use. So either service order or service provider, and if there's missing one, then you can add one, of course. And then for the different types of transactions, they're pretty much all there. And transaction contacts, the majority of them are there by default. But again, if needed, add. And transaction status, I think that's pretty complete as well. Okay, so know that you can add some if you need to. Now the default dashboards. So when we first started, I said, well, okay, so the dashboards you can change it around, but you can also set it up so that it appears the same way each time. And notice that when you go into a transaction, you have another dashboard, okay? And the same thing, this isn't the general dashboard here. This is the dashboard within your transaction webinar June 8th, and you can move these around, okay? So same thing as on your main dashboard here, okay? But don't be worried about trying different things. You can go ahead and try and see what works for you, okay? So I'll go back, we'll finish going through the setup. So default dashboard, the clauses, so system clauses are all here. Now if you want to add your own clauses, you'll be able to come here and add a clause, okay? And type it up, make sure it's valid. Transaction, so checklist manager, know that it's there. Come back to the DocBox webinar for us to tell you everything about it. Just create a checklist. You would create a new checklist here, and in your checklist, put in a series of tasks. Transaction templates. So as I mentioned, you can use income property here, for example, and say in my checklist, I have income property checklist and forms. You can add all of these forms. So each time you start a transaction, these forms will apply. Just hold on one moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. Then you also have the team sharing option. So if you are working in teams, so all your income properties, for example, you're working in it with one partner, but all the homes you're selling them with another work partner, you can automate that as well, set it up, and so I only have to select the option when you start a transaction and apply all the different standards you have for those type of transactions with your colleague. Then the teams and sharing option is there as well. So you can have so vacation or replacement team, for example. So you're going on vacation. What will happen here is you'll have everyone from your office will appear here. So you can select this broker and say that this broker, so here I have centers number 10 and 11, my two best colleagues, and say that they have a full access. They can write and they can read only if I want to. Allow impersonation. So can they act under my name, my broker code, which is centrist number 6, or not? And then I can remove and create another team if I need to. Okay, so I have different team here. So multiplex team. You know, you can any other teams you may need, you can create them here. Okay. Integrations here. So if you want to use a third party signature, so you could use easy sign next one. I'll let you. It's a bit more technical here. I'll let you look into that if you need to. But know that it's there. And then so service providers, here you could add any other service providers you're working with. So company you may be hiring, you would add them there, and then just mention the terms of services are there so you can have a look if ever you have any questions. And for support, you can always contact Centris, so you can contact them through there. You can go through Instanet training and forms, and then AuthentiSign is also there in the same place. Okay, so that pretty much covers what I had to show you today. Basically, what you really want to remember is 2 things. So always start by creating a transaction. Know that there's the left menu on the top to go through the different tools, and you can follow a webinar on all the different tools. So on AuthentiSign, on DocBox, to complete the information that we've seen today. But what we've seen today is basically create a transaction, and then through the transaction use the the wizard on the right, and go through each step. And mainly here we had a look at the forms. So that completes everything I wanted to show you today. If you have any questions or anything you'd like for me to repeat, please go ahead. I'll be happy to answer your questions or repeat if needed. Otherwise, just as a reminder, we access the webinars and the tutorials through the settings parts of the Instanet, but also, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, you can access them through the training section. Okay, and you can also contact Centris here many different ways if you have any questions or need specifications on some of the tools. Okay, so it doesn't seem there are any questions at the moment. So I'll be ending the webinar within the next minute. So thank you for attending the webinar today, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in the future webinars offered by centers. Have a great day.